Before the bikers could respond, the sound of another vehicle pulling up outside made everyone turn their heads. The second twist was here, and it was about to make things even more complicated. The growl of the new vehicle's engine was deep and deliberate, different from the earlier roar of motorcycles. Everyone in the diner, including the men who had just arrived, turned their attention toward the door. A heavy-set man in a leather jacket stepped inside, his face unreadable but his presence intimidating. He wasn't part of the veterans group, and it was clear from the tension in his stance that he wasn't on friendly terms with the bikers either. The bikers visibly stiffened. One of them muttered under his breath, "Boss." Their leader was here. His eyes scanned the room, taking in the men, the veteran, and his crew. The veteran remained unflinching, his calm demeanor as steady as ever. The boss's gaze finally settled on the veteran. "You're the one causing trouble for my boys?" he asked, his tone cold but curious. The veteran smiled faintly, a look of unshaken confidence. "I didn't start this," he replied. "But I'll end it if I have to." The boss stepped closer, his menacing figure now casting a shadow over the scene. Tension crackled in the air as everyone waited to see how this confrontation would unfold, knowing the stakes had just skyrocketed. The boss paused, his eyes narrowing as he studied the veteran. There was something in the old man's steady gaze that made even him hesitate. Finally, the veteran spoke again, his voice calm but commanding. "You think you know power? You have no idea what real strength is: discipline, sacrifice, loyalty. Your boys forgot their manners today, and I gave them a reminder." The room held its breath as the boss looked at his crew, then back at the veteran. After a tense moment, he gave a slight nod. "We'll be leaving now," he said gruffly. Turning to the bikers, he barked, "Get up. Now." They scrambled to obey, their bravado completely gone. As they filed out, one of the veteran's men stepped forward. "You sure that's it, sir?" he asked. The veteran nodded. Lessons taught. The diner returned to normal, but no one would forget that day. A quiet reminder that respect is earned, and strength comes in many forms. Imagine this. A quiet, humble 96-year-old veteran walks into a diner for his usual cup of coffee. His life has been anything but ordinary. He's seen wars, fought for his country, and carries a lifetime of stories etched in his weathered face. But today, something unexpected happens. 5 rowdy bikers notice him and decide to single him out, mocking his age and uniform. The tension rises as the old man stays calm, sipping his coffee and ignoring their taunts. What could he possibly do against 5 towering bikers? Then, with a steady hand, he picks up his phone and makes a single call. What happens next leaves the bikers frozen in place, their cocky grins wiped clean. It's a moment no one in that diner will ever forget. Who did he call, and why did it strike such fear into their hearts? Stay tuned to find out. The diner fell silent as the old veteran calmly finished his call and placed his phone on the table. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence starting to waver, though they tried to hide it behind smirks and loud laughter. The veteran didn't say a word. He didn't need to. There was something about the way he sat there, unmoving, with an unshakable air of composure, that made everyone in the room curious and uneasy. Who was this man? To the bikers, he seemed like just another frail old-timer, easy to intimidate. But those who knew him better, like the diner's owner, who had been watching from behind the counter, could sense there was more to him. This man had lived through things most people couldn't even imagine. And now, as the minutes ticked by, the tension in the room thickened. Whatever was coming, the bikers weren't ready for it. As the minutes dragged on, the bikers grew restless. Their laughter was quieter now, forced. One of them, a tall man with a scruffy beard, leaned over the table and sneered at the veteran. "What's the matter, old man?" Scared to say something. Still, the veteran didn't react. He just sat there, calm and collected, his gaze steady but unreadable. The veteran still didn't move. He simply sat there, his expression calm, as if he knew exactly how this would play out. Outside, the roar of the engines stopped, replaced by the sound of heavy boots hitting the pavement. The bikers turned their heads toward the door, their bravado now replaced by unease. The door swung open, and in walked a group of men, all dressed sharply, their presence commanding the room. Without a word, they scanned the scene, their eyes locking on the bikers. The tension was unbearable. Something big was about to go down. The room fell deathly quiet as the men who had just entered spread out, their sheer presence making it clear they weren't here for a casual visit. Each of them carried an air of authority, and though they didn't say a word, their sharp, assessing gazes spoke volumes. The bikers, suddenly unsure of themselves, sat rigidly in their seats, their earlier mockery and bravado gone. But then, one of the men stepped forward. A tall figure with a firm, commanding voice. He looked straight at the veteran, gave a small nod, and said, "Sir, we're here as requested." The biker's jaws dropped. The veteran hadn't just called for help. He had summoned men who seemed to owe him more than loyalty. They owed him respect. As the air grew heavier with tension, one of the bikers finally spoke up, his voice cracking slightly. "What is this?" he demanded. The veteran, for the first time, broke his silence. In a calm but firm tone he said, "You messed with the wrong man." The diner's other patrons were on edge, caught between fear and curiosity. Some whispered to each other, wondering who the veteran had called. A few of the regulars exchanged knowing looks, but no one dared to speak up. Meanwhile, the diner's owner kept wiping the same spot on the counter, his hands trembling ever so slightly. He knew the veteran's history. He knew what that phone call might mean. Outside, the faint sound of engines in the distance grew louder. The bikers froze, their confidence faltering. Something, or someone, was coming. The low rumble of engines grew louder, and soon it wasn't just one or two, it was several. The sound filled the air outside the diner, vibrating through the walls and making the windows tremble. The bikers, who had been so bold moments ago, now shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They exchanged nervous glances, their tough demeanor slipping as they tried to figure out what was happening.